Welcome back to Rogue Bogues, episode 36 of the basketball series. Myself, Andrew Bogut, and Mike Procopio. Back on the airwaves. How you going, pro?
Bogues, everything's good, man. Just enjoyed our off season. I felt like we played in the Olympics, and then we have to report to training camp like 3 weeks later. It wasn't much of an off season. We had like 3 weeks off, 4 weeks off.
Yeah, about a month. We had a full month. Got to go to the beach, have some beers, do all that fun stuff that you do during the off season. Get in trouble, get a few DUIs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, did you stop talking to your team and force a trade in the off season, Bogues, or you're good?
Still working on it. I'm holding out. I'm still not reporting.
Awesome. We'll make it work.
Yeah, lots been going on around the world. We're still stuck in COVID here in Australia. Pro's been giving me shit for doing all my my COVID rants and videos. I'm just trying to get my point of view out there, which is a little bit different from mainstream's pro. So don't kill me too much.
Bogues, come on. We just talk shit.
We do. You talk a lot of shit. But so do I. So it's a great working relationship. But the reason why we're on this one is to talk basketball. So a lot has been going on. It went pretty quiet actually. So we timed our off season well because there wasn't a whole lot going on in early September, kind of when we took our hiatus, which was planned because we just didn't want to talk shit for 2 hours about nothing because there wasn't a whole lot of news and it was kind of a dead period. So we've got about a month's worth of news in today's podcast. But it starts basically and ends, in my opinion, with obviously the coronavirus and the vaccines and the vaccine mandates. Now, for people who haven't followed this, I'm pro-choice, pro. I'm not sure what your position is. I'm pro-choice, that everybody has a choice whether to get it or not. I don't know where you sit on that.
I'm pro-choice. I think you should have a choice. Now, I understand definitely what people want. Like, people want others to get vaccinated. My feeling is, look, if you're afraid of what's inside of it because it's not tested, you don't want your wife taking it because you're pregnant. She's pregnant. You don't know about mutation in kids and what it does or what it doesn't do. I get that. If you're not doing it for that reason, if you're not doing it because you don't want to be controlled by the government, that's sort of where I have an issue. Or there's a microchip inside of it. Like, if you're afraid of it, what's inside? That's 100%. Like, I could see that. But like, if you're not afraid of what's in it and you're just like holding out because fuck the government on one end or another, I have an issue with that. Just in case you do get it, God forbid, and then you get you get like in a hospital or something, you take up a bed when you could have just vaccinated. You weren't afraid of it. And you just didn't want to do it because you want to stand up to the government or you want to be tough on social media and say that. I don't know. That's where I sort of have a little bit of an issue. Hey, look, everybody's got their own choice. They're going to do what they're going to do anyway. No one can force you at this point in time to do it. I guess we'll get into it. But I am pro-choice, though. I think you should be. I'm not going to hold it against you if you get it or not get it. That's on you. That's sort of how I feel.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I disagree a little bit with, I think the government mandating things like this to the extent that they are, I heavily disagree with. I don't believe in the whole microchip thing and all that. I agree with that. But there are people out there that are concerned about, if I do this, then what else? What other things will be brought in the future? So I definitely hear those concerns. And I just think it's a choice. I don't think you should lose your livelihood or your job based on a vaccine. But what was interesting about it was this was every journalist's first question at NBA Media Day. And it just absolutely did my head in because all they wanted that player that said they haven't got it, or they wanted the Draymond Green or Bradley Beal quote, and they were just it was just bad. It's the elitist white liberal journalist that's just and it really bothered me a little bit to that extent. And I think some players that pushed back and made very good comments around it on my list, which we'll get to a bit later. But yeah, it's just an interesting time. The NBA union and the NBA somewhat have claimed that 90 to 95% of players have been vaccinated. I'm not buying that, pro, at all. I'm not buying that. You're not selling me on that 5%, between 5 and 10% have not been. I know for a fact, I know some players that haven't been for whatever reasons they have, but I think from what I've read and what I've researched and reached out to a few players, it's essentially currently an honor system, pro. So I believe they're asking players whether they've been vaccinated. And I think this is some clubs, I'm not sure if it's the majority, that the player says yes or no, and that's a tick. So I know some teams
come on.
They have not asked for proof. The other interesting one is there's a certain general manager out west saying there's rumors that we've both heard from people that he had, there's a certain team out west that had a number of kind of vax hesitant people that signed with that team that all of a sudden have been vaccinated, and the wording, the rumor goes that the GM of that team has said, listen, we'll protect you, just say you've had it. And why am I saying this? Because I just don't believe the 90% number. You're not selling me on that. I think it's closer to 70, maybe 60, 70, maybe 80. But there's a lot of people that are hesitant, and rightfully so. I have no issue with that. If people don't want to get it, to me, that's their decision, like I've said earlier. But yeah, the NBA selling this, I'm just not sure about those numbers, bro.
No, the number's totally bullshit. I mean, it's totally bullshit, especially if you go on an honor system. If you talk to half the NBA people, and I'm talking about players, coaches, management, half of them, if they told me today was Saturday, I'll go home and check a calendar, because I can't believe a fucking word they'd say anyway. There's no fucking chance if they go on honor system. They just don't want the brush back, and they want the numbers to get higher. Yeah, no fucking doubt.
Yeah, exactly, and it's a push to try and get everyone else in the league that isn't onto that boat. But there was some there's some players out there that were kind of staunchly against it publicly about a year ago. That now all of a sudden a GM sat down with them and said, "Oh, you should do it," and they're, "Oh yeah, because the GM said I'm going to do it." Like I'm not behind that, bro. Not for a minute.
No, fuck no. And the GM's going to talk to him, and they're going to say, "Hey, look, just say it. It's honor system. It's not like anybody's going to check." And that's sort of the deal. We look good by having a 90 to 95% number, a 90% number, whatever it is, and just do it. No one's going to say anything about it. Just give them name, rank, and serial number when it comes to, media day. Just say you had it, and we'll protect you, and we're just going to move on.
Yeah, totally agree. This then brings us into the statement which was released by Mr. Mike Bass, with the NBA. He basically said any player who elects not to comply with local vaccination mandates will not be paid for the games that he misses. In a statement to the media, third day of training camp, a vaccine mandate for NBA players would need an agreement with the Players Association. The NBA has made these proposals, but the Players Union has rejected any vaccination requirement. It's interesting because, Andrew Wiggins, Kyrie Irving are probably the two biggest names that have publicly came out and said that they don't want to get it. Andrew Wiggins tried for a religious exemption, and they slapped that down pretty quickly. Kyrie Irving is refusing to comment on all costs. I'm sure there's others, but the fact that they, if they can't get to certain cities because of state mandates, because for people listening.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's actually city mandate. Bogues, and this is where United States government's fucked up. No one has control over the other. So not the president can come out and say, "Look, here's the laws that I want to do," but then the state can go, "No, fuck no. The state, we're going to do whatever we want. State of California, we're going to do it this way," and then the city could say, "Fuck the state. We're going to do what we want. We're going to do what we want to do." So,
oh wow, you got city as well there. So
we get city and the
so
LA.
Wow,
Bogues, LA, you can play. San Francisco, you can't play. That's how fucked up government is. And in some ways, it protects from a tyrant dictator president that just says we're going to do this, or a governor of a state. So the city could be like, no, this is what we're going to mandate. So yeah, LA. I think you're good. SAC, I think you're good. It's just Golden State is, I think Golden State is where you're fucked.
Yeah, so for Wiggins' case, he wouldn't be able to play home games, right?
Yes, you cannot play home games. You will not get paid for home games. See, here's where I lie on it, Bogues. I am pro-choice, but I think your employer, however they're going to do it, if they make a decision, whatever it is, and they're going to go, look, we have to abide by city ordinance. That's what our teams are, our organizations are. If that's the rule, that's the rule. So, I don't think they should fire you. I don't think, and I don't think they should fire the nacho guy for not getting the vaccine. If the nacho guy's going to get vaccinated, why do the fucking players have to do it? So, I don't mind jumping through some extra hoops if that's the case, if you're not vaccinated, if that's what they want to do. But I don't believe they should take your job, because there are a lot of coaches. There's a lot of coaches that I know and scouts that got fired because they didn't want to take the vaccine. Literally, they just got let go. They gave them a year severance pay or whatever they did. But it was clearly because they didn't get the vaccine. And that's not right, because you're not doing that to the player. I think it should be the same. The player makes more money than the fucking scout does. No question about it, like for the league. But you're not telling me that a player's life is worth more than my life if we're working we're human beings. So if you're going to tell me I got to get it, why the fuck don't they have to get it? And vice versa. So that's where
team owners might look at that differently, Pro.
Look, no doubt about it. No fucking doubt about it.
It's a harsh reality, but it's the truth.
No doubt. No question. Yeah. But what are you going to do? It's hard, so bro. They're going to have to miss.
But why can't, all right, let me argue the other side of this, right? Why can't those unvaccinated players still have the same protocols they had in the bubble and not? So if you're saying that they can't enter certain states and whatnot, why can't they have the same protocol? So they go on the road, they're not allowed to leave the hotel room. I don't agree with all this, by the way, but I'm just playing the other side of it. So they're unvaccinated. Sure. Why can't they have those same protocols that they've been doing the last 18 months? So do those protocols no longer work? The mask, social distancing?
I don't understand it, because I'm almost positive, don't quote me on it, but I'm almost positive fans in like Golden State, fans will have to, like, just like all these fans, they either have to show vaccination card or proof of vaccination or a negative test within 24 hours. So my thinking is, if that's the case, and again, I have to check it, but I'm almost positive. If that's the case, why can't the player do the same thing? Stay in the hotel, do all that, get rapid tested before they get in the arena. If they're good, they're good. And now they enter the arena. I don't understand why they just can't, like you said, same rules as applies in the bubble and this past year. Just test fucking 20 times a day like they did this year. That's my
point. So if you're saying all those tests were appropriate back in the day, why aren't they not appropriate now then? Because basically the vaccinated players they're gonna get out of all those tests. They're gonna no longer have to do all the mandates, all the extra bullshit, the 2 tests a day. They're allowed to leave their hotel room. They're allowed to do all that shit. So that's my point. It's like, well, it's one or the other. So then you're either telling us that those protocols were half pointless back in the day, that we were just doing for theatrics, or they either worked or they didn't. So if they worked, if those theatrics and those things worked, you can implement them for the unvaccinated players. That would be my argument on all that. But the interesting part with this is what happens with, I'm not a, I don't know US labor laws in detail, but I know for a fact that these players, whoever it is, Andrew Wiggins or Joe Blow, that are unvaccinated and then don't get paid, their NBA contracts would not have that in them, because a lot of these guys would have signed these contracts, years ago. Wiggins' max deal was third year or fourth year of his max anyway. I'm not sure what the new NBA contracts would have, but I assume there'd be something with state ordinance or state health regulations that they've thrown in there. But those older contracts, I'd be interested to see if there's something in there around, whether your employer, wants to give you a mandatory vaccination to play, whether these players will go to a labor, like a labor law, go to court, fight it, saying that, this is a restraint of trade essentially, because it wasn't in the contract. Or
arbitration maybe, but maybe there's some language in the contract, which I don't know, but maybe there's some language in the contract that, like, labor laws in states and cities abide, so you have to abide by those things. I'm not sure, Bogues, but like, you still got to pay taxes in those cities, and they're different. Like, I think you have to go by their laws. So if the laws are saying that you can't compete in this city, if that's the case, I don't know, Bogues. That's a good question. I'm interested, just like you are, to sort of see how that plays out.
Yeah, and where a court rules on it, and if it does go to court. And then my follow-up to that is, in your opinion, where does and where should the NBA union stand on all this?
Well, the NBA union is definitely going to go by its players. They're going to try to get them every dime possible. It just makes them look good. Now, I think their president, I think she's leaving soon, isn't it? This might be her last year. I think they were voting somebody else in, but it makes her look weak if they're just going to, like, sit back and take it. But again, like, it's funny because everybody wants to be political and everybody wants to get on the right side of things. She might side with it because, again, if she'll side with the players, but then they're like, wait a minute, are you against vaccinate? Like, so this is how fucking stupid our world is. Instead of saying, no, my job's to protect the players regardless. And then if she's doing that job and then somebody gives her shit in the media, a storm of people by saying, oh, you're against vaccination, blah, blah, blah. And then there's this big fucking war. This is the bullshit that we deal with in the world instead of like, hey, look, let's figure something out and we'll go from there. But now it's all these arguments. You try to media try to divide players and divide, this vaccinated versus unvaccinated crowd. Where do you stand? It's all bullshit. But, that's what, hey, fucking welcome to 2021.
Yeah, a lot of division. I think the union's job is to always protect the players and the players' beliefs, the players' wants and needs. Whether you agree or disagree as a union, that's your job. So here in Australia, we had massive protest a couple of weeks ago in Melbourne, and it was a construction industry actually looted their own union headquarters.
No shit.
Yeah, it was very, very interesting. They tried to label it as right-wing neo-Nazis infiltrated the construction workers' protest and did it, but no, most people with half a brain know that there was a lot of people in that union that are frustrated that their union hasn't made a hard stance on it. They've kind of, because they're in bed with the government, pretty messy. So this is a similar situation you don't want to see from the union. The union, whether you agree or disagree, needs to protect players at all costs. So Michelle Roberts' kind of wording's been interesting. She made a comment saying over 90% of our players are fully vaccinated. MBPA Executive Director Michelle Roberts told ESPN, nationally on average, only 55% of Americans are. The real story is not vaccination, not why vaccination isn't mandated in the NBA. The real story for proponents of vaccination is how can we emulate the players in the NBA? Now, we both question that number, but she's hasn't come out and said anything that I'll protect players at all costs that don't want to. It's kind of been a little bit murky, so I'm not sure if there's pushback there. As you said, from the NBA, there could be pushback from the vaccinated players that are on the board. Who knows? But yeah, an interesting time and a lot of division. Some comments I noted, the Draymond Green comments that came a couple of days ago, I think to me, they ring true that he's had his vaccination reportedly, and he just said that the Wiggins situation is up to Andrew Wiggins. It's his decision, and he's hated how political it's become, and I would agree with that. It's become so political that there's people out there saying that, you're putting the community at risk when you're not. You're not putting the community at risk. This is the biggest misconception of the vaccination that I get real frustrated with. Is everything I've read, Pro, is that the vax is going to protect you. And the one gripe that people that are vaccinated have against the unvaccinated is that, like you said, is that there's a higher chance they might end up in hospital in the ICU and taken up a bed, right? That's the only argument. So the people that are like, oh, I need to be afraid of the unvaccinated person. If you're vaccinated, no, you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be. You've had your vaccination. You're good to go. And that's the divide mentality now where, what I find funny is the equality spruikers of the last decade, the protect the minority at all costs people are now literally wanting to shoot unvaccinated people on the street. And that's, it's just not right. I think it's all about pro-choice. Look, are there ramifications of your choice at times? Yes. Should you lose your job? Absolutely not, in my opinion. But we agree to disagree on that. Bradley Beal's comments, I think, were pretty decent. A lot of the sentiments is similar to mine. And Jonathan Isaac, I think, broke it down really well. And a point that he made, 2 points actually, is that he's, for the guys that have had COVID, Pro, it's noted, and that the antibodies you get from COVID are arguably better than the vaccine itself. Should they then be made to get the vaccination, Pro?
I'm not smart enough to figure that one out, Bogues.
If that's true, let's say it is true, right? It's been reported that if you've had COVID, you've got the antibodies because you've had the actual virus, so your body's built up, and you've obviously survived it and done well with it, and you're living fine. Should those people be mandated to get a vaccine even though they've had COVID, let's say a month ago?
I would say yes, if that's the rule that they have to be vaccinated in that city to play. Do you know what I'm saying? Like in Golden State, if you don't want to miss a check, or New York, if you don't want to miss a check, I would say yes. Just because if that's the rule, that's the rule. Unless they want to amend the rule. Like if they want to amend the rule and say vaccinated or you need the antibody. But Bogues, it changes every fucking day when you hear about COVID. This works. This doesn't work. This is good against it. This isn't, the next day, this isn't good against it. Yeah. It's like, and everybody's got their belief about it. And to be honest with you, nobody's fucking right. Everybody just thinks, yeah, we have doctors that say it. They could be wrong. People off the street that get their shit from the internet. No one really knows. So if you don't believe what I'm saying that I'm going to do for the COVID, and that's just, we're always going to disagree on something as a human race.
And that's fine.
And there's no fucking right answer. Yeah, and that's great.
Disagreeing is fine. It's when it gets to the point of whether the vaccinated think that they're, whether I'm vaccinated or not is no one's business. I'm on that boat as well. If someone asks me, I tell them to go fuck themselves. That's my personal business. And I believe it always should be. I don't think you should be showing your papers because it is a slippery slope. But, you just gotta treat people as people. And the thing is that there's such a divide in the community now that is very, very sad to see based on a vaccination. It's like, oh, you're one of those anti-vax. Oh, you're one of those pro-vax. Maybe you've got a chip in you, and that's fueled by media. It's fueled by what we're talking about right now. We're supposed to be talking about the NBA and we're talking about vaccinations. So it's reared its head in all walks of life. I totally agree with what you said to an extent, but I think for me, if you've had COVID, there are some places in the world. I think in at least in I think New South Wales, Sydney, if you've had COVID, that acts as gives you a 6 months not to have the vaccine, I believe, because you've got the antibodies and you get that in a simple blood test, and that would be the science. But even down to the science, you can find opinions that are for and against, and that are in the middle, and that and like you said, I think the hesitancy for some people for vaccines, some people that I've talked to that aren't anti-vaxxers by any means, they've had all their vaccinations leading up to the COVID one, like they've had everything through their childhood, the flu vax, they had no issue with that. Is that kind of the rhetoric changing every day and the direction, and this works. Oh, now it doesn't. Now this works. I mean, at the start they said, Fauci was on record saying, do not wear masks. They're not good for you, and there'll be a mask shortage for our hospital workers and whatnot. And then that changed a month later. So I think you hit it spot on. I think that creates some hesitancy with the protocols, with government direction, with vaccines. And I'm a firm believer in freedom of choice. I don't think you should be penalized with your employment and be ostracized. But one final thing I'll finish on, which I found interesting, was Jonathan Isaac's comments. So right now, if you're unvaccinated in the NBA pro and you're allowed to travel to said state or city to play, the rules around what you have to do around the team?
Yeah, like you got to literally distance yourself on the plane. I think you have to take a separate transportation. You got to stay in your hotel room. You got to be tested. All of that stuff, right, Bogues?
Can't go out to eat with the guys. Yeah, can't go out to eat with the guys. Team meetings, you got to be in a separate part of the room. This is the biggest load of shit, and Jonathan Isaac hit it out of the park. He said, so I can chest bump in warm-ups, I can stretch with the trainers, I can get my ice packs, I can get treatment in the training room, I can wrestle with a guy on a basketball court for 48 minutes. But the moment I get on the bus, I got to be socially distanced, and that's. You can't argue that, bro. Those rules are absolutely ridiculous. Now, if you said Jonathan Isaac's going to a fan clinic or interacting with people outside of the group that he's with every day, maybe there's an argument to that, right? But he's with these people every fucking day. And so you got a social distance on a bus and a plane, and then you're in layup lines high-fiving each other. Where's the logic in that, bro?
Yeah, no question about that, Bogues. Look, I'm all for jumping through some hoops if you're not vaccinated, in the sense that I have to get tested every day. I got to stay in the hotel but I could be around my team is fine. I could sit next to him on the bus is fine. I could sit next to him, I could dance with them on the fucking plane if I want to. That shit you should be able to do. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not for taking some of these checkbooks. I just want to let you know, I'm not for firing somebody if they don't have the vaccine. I am for, if that's your rule as an NBA, that you need to be vaccinated, or you got to jump through a few more hoops with testing and whatnot and access in some ways. I get that, but I don't get the whole fucking rhetoric of you got to take, you got to be like in a vacuum sealed fucking pouch, and you got to be Bubble Boy from Seinfeld on the fucking plane, and you got to be, That's dumb as shit. That's fucking dumb as shit.
But we'll watch this space. It's an interesting time outside of the NBA. Just looking out your window, like in American history, in Australian history, in world history, this is going to be very, very interesting to see how it all plays out. Because there are people that can't afford to lose their job. That I've got a few friends that were kind of in the middle. Should I get it? It hasn't been out that long. I want to see how it goes over a couple of years before I get it. They've just had it recently because they had to because of their job. I've got other friends of mine that resigned from their job and just said, I don't want to be forced. I want to take my time with it. And I've got people that are heavily against it. I've got people that are actually for it and took it the day it was available. So the biggest thing is that we come together as a community and have these open discussions without saying you're an anti-vaxxer or you're a pro-vaxxer or you're pro-government, actually having a civil conversation like adults and at times agree to disagree. But what I want to reiterate is if you're vaccinated and you're sitting next next to an unvaccinated person, you're gonna be okay because you've had your vaccine. You've had what it's supposed to do is supposed to protect you from the virus, right? So you'll be okay. So the only gripe that I see is that you can argue that an unvaccinated person will clog up the health system, but then that discussion can then lead down a whole nother track when it comes to diet, it comes to alcohol, it comes to cigarettes,
cigarettes. Why are we selling them?
Yeah. Drug use. That's a personal choice. Also, don't forget, if people are not looking after their bodies and end up in the ICU at 40 instead of 60 because they've got a heart problem, that's also a personal choice. So it does become a slippery slope. And that's always been my argument from the start with all this. And that's a hill I'll die on that I cop shit for, but I'm okay to die on. But enough of vaccines, bro. I think we've exhausted that one. Ben Simmons saga is ongoing and...
Shocker.
Man, we hit this one out of the park months ago. We're starting to get more and more right. So don't hold it against us, people. But yeah, he has held out as we predicted. He will not report to camp. There were some rumblings that they were trying to schmooze him. I don't know if you saw Doc Rivers and was it Danny Green? I think we're trying to get him on a Zoom call. They were trying to get him in-person meeting. They were trying to how do we get him? And I know Ben well from these kind of situations. I don't know Ben that well as a person, but I know these kind of situations is not something that he does. He just, if he doesn't want to meet with you, he's not going to meet with you. And that's a few struggles that we had with the national team. So I kind of knew as soon as that all started, I'm like, you're not getting him in a room on the phone or whatever. You're just going to ignore you, which is exactly what he's done. So Philly's in a tough spot. Ben's probably in a tough spot now because Philly's reported that they're not going to pay him. He's owed $8.25 million to date. They're holding that in escrow. They said if he reports, we'll give it all to him. That's the cherry. If he doesn't, we'll keep it. It'll be interesting to see what the union does with that. But I agree with that. If you're not reporting, you don't deserve your check. But where the discussion lies is the trade value to me is starting to plummet by the day, the longer this goes on. What do Philly do? What do teams willing to trade for him do? Or do they start lowballing and putting crazy little offers towards him and just try to entice him to get it done? Do Philly hold out? We've had this discussion, months ago with the Harden, now a year ago with the Harden issue with Houston. It'd be good to see a team just say, no, you know what? Fuck you. We're not. You report and come and play for us, or you're sitting out a whole season. But I don't think that happens, but it'd be nice to see once in a while. But where do you think this all sits? How do you see his trade value? Does Philly get equal return back, or will this linger on for 2 or 3 more months?
I think it's done by the trade deadline. I think it's very much earlier.
Trade deadline? Jesus, that's 6 months away.
No. It'll be done before the trade deadline, basically. That's the latest it will ever go. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen much earlier than that. He's not going to report. There's no chance. The trade value was low when this saga began a few months ago, and it's low now. You're not going to get equal value. Like I said before, I think the 3 trade targets that you'll probably see is you'll see Portland, CJ McCollum, even though, GM went out and said, CJ's worth more than him, blah, 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 that bullshit. You're going to see that. You're going to see Buddy Hield and some other assets in SAC. And then you might see San Antonio with a few of those rotation players that they have. They don't have anybody great on their roster, but you might see a DeJounte Murray, Keldon Johnson, Lonnie Walker, Derek White, some combination of that and maybe some picks and things. But you're not going to see a great player. Look, he's a good player. We talked about it, but he can't close games because he can't shoot. Then you got that whole attitude thing of not wanting to shoot. Not only structurally is his shot fucked. Well, unless you follow him on Instagram, then he's fucking Larry fucking Bird. But if there's not a lot of value there in the sense that he's like a top 25 player, somewhere in that realm, in my opinion. You're not going to get really a top 25 player back. And if you're going to get one, you're going to get 24, 25, 26, 36, or a combination of players. Just because he's got that flaw, the shot. And then here's the thing. If I'm trading for him, I'm sure they'll do their homework, but there's no guarantee that he'll fucking show up to that team if he doesn't want to be there. No one's psyched up to be in fucking Sacramento. If you get traded to Sacramento, who's to say?
Well, I think at this point he has to show up, whether it's Rhode Island or whether it's Sacramento. I don't think he has much more leverage though, Pro. Surely he can't get traded somewhere and then hold out again.
I agree. But who knows? I don't think that Philly can really hold out. And then there's going to be a ton of pressure. That imagine if none of that was said. Doc didn't say that stuff, and B didn't say that stuff. The playoffs they still lost, but it didn't lose in that sense. And he had no pressure really in the offseason, maybe a little shit for not advancing in the playoffs. And then he comes back to Xanadu. He comes back to a perfect situation. Ben's the best, blah, blah, blah. And then he might still fuck his shooting up and not still be afraid to shoot. And that's in a perfect world. Now, he's on every headline for the last 3 months about this whole fucking saga with them in Philly. He's got the whole holdout thing. Everybody's fucking burning Ben Simmons jerseys and shit. Now he's got all this pressure. Do you think he can go back to Philly and play because his fucking trade value's down and really play well enough to rise it? Fuck no. As fucking Roy Kent would say in Ted Lasso. No fucking chance. I think they're going to have to deal him. I think Philly's being stubborn right now and trying to get this mega deal that ain't ever going to fucking happen. And I think he's going to I'm telling you, it could be another team, Minnesota, but like, what are you going to get from Minnesota? D'Angelo fucking Russell? Give me a fucking break. Seriously, that's the fucking answer? Fuck no, I'm not a fan. No, I'm not a fan.
They're actually rumored as the only team to probably have the most assets to do it, funnily enough. I mean,
they have assets like Malik Beasley. Like, Beasley's good. Like, I think that for them, it's either CJ McCollum, so you have a scorer, and you have a guy who's really fucking good, and you could just outscore people and your defense is going to suffer. Or you're going to get a team like a Minnesota or a San Antonio that'll give you a bunch of players. Like, that you could just surround them in numbers. And, you don't get this great player in return, but you get all these okay players that you could throw in a rotation, and you could throw them in your starting lineup and they'll be okay. But collectively, they'll give you a lot of what Ben gave you. But you're never going to get a guy who's as talented as Ben Simmons on the defensive side, the size, the athleticism, the vision, but you're going to get better shooting and you're going to get other things that he won't get. You're just not going to get an all-star quality player back. CJ McCollum, to me, is like a borderline all-star. He's not an all-star, but, he's a really good fucking player. But I just don't think they're going to get much, Bogues. What do you think? How do you see all this stuff?
No idea, man. I mean, I'd be interested to see him in San Antonio with Pop. I think that'd be interesting in itself. But they have an Australian connection there with obviously Jock Landale and assistant coach Matt Nielsen. So that could be the play that they have a few Aussies there. But that's not going to do much for Ben.
They got Chip England too. They got Chip England, and that's probably one of the biggest assets in this trade if he goes to San Antonio, because you got a guy who's fixed multiple people's shots that couldn't really shoot coming into the league. Bruce Bowen, Tony Parker, those type of guys, Kawhi Leonard, he's fixed a bunch of shots. The problem is you got to listen to the fucking guy. And Ben, as we know, hasn't been Mr. Hey, I'm going to listen to the structure. Now, look, I don't know the kid. I spent a week with him in a camp in China. I don't know him from fucking Adam, and he doesn't know me. So I don't know. Maybe he does want to listen. Maybe, how the NBA is too, Bogues. And Philly's been notorious for it ever, since that guy got drafted there, where they let those fucking guys do whatever the fuck they want, work with whoever the fuck they want, and they don't treat them like, hey, Ben, you got to work with our shooting coach. Like, they had a really good shooting coach, and he never let him work with him. It was a fucking joke.
Well, he's not working with Chip then. He's not working with Chip yet. I mean, I think he's got his guys. He's going to do those off-season workouts, which is up to him in the off-season. But you just hope he ends up somewhere. I don't think he's a number one guy on a team, in my opinion. I think he's a fantastic player, a star player. I think he can really cause problems throughout a game with his defensive pressure and his athleticism. But when it comes playoff time, you need more than that. And unfortunately, unless you play him at the 5, you need some shooting, and that's just the reality of it. I mean, I wasn't a great shooter throughout my career, right? But especially late in my career, I found a role, and that was at the 5 spot. If I was a 3 or a 4, I'd be out of the league, right? So that's the other thing. He hates playing the 4 and the 5. I'm on record to say that. I noticed it with our national team when he came to that one session. He hates being called a 4-man. He thinks he's a point guard and not a point forward. He doesn't want none of that point forward shit. I'm a point guard. But you can't play him at the 1, 2, and 3, even the 4 at times, because Minnesota could work because Towns can stretch and shoot threes. But we all know how that went when Towns was stuck in the corner, when Butler and all that were there, and he hated that. So thinking out loud, you got to play him next to a 5 like a Brook Lopez, and there's not a whole lot of of teams that are starting a big 7-footer that can shoot threes at that clip. So it's going to be interesting.
Folks, he can win a championship at the point with one team in the league right now. Dream Team 92. He could definitely win a championship at the fucking Dream Team. But besides that, probably not. Because of the shooting, because of the being afraid to shoot, get to the free throw line. Like, that's the thing. Like, he's got to get with a guy. First of all, his shot doctor should be sued for malpractice. For whoever the fuck was working with him with a shot. He needs a real guy that's going to fucking help him. That's going to say, hey, look, we're not trying to control you here, but this guy's going to help you. Work with him 35 minutes a day, 45 minutes a day. Now, look, that's not reality because you know how it is in the NBA. But Philly started this shit. Letting those fucking guys do whatever the fuck they want and not giving some structure like, no, wait a minute. Yeah, you have a lot of rights here, obviously, but we need you to shoot with this guy. We need you to get better at this. But, like, that didn't happen. Like, they held planes for rookies. They let them do what the fuck they want. Guys coming in late, never fined. I mean, they just let it run a fucking muck like it was an AU team. Not with Doc. I'm saying pre-Doc. That's how the shit was.
Yeah, but that's a mentality now. It's hard to turn that mentality off once it's, 6, 7, 8 years in the league. Right. But with my Ben thing saying that he's not a number one guy, I still think he's a very good number two guy. And the problem is you got to try to sell him on, hey, Ben, if you give us 15, let's say 12 points a night, 10 assists, 8 rebounds, 2 or 3 steals and put the pressure on, but you're okay with a guy being above you, aka, Jimmy Butler, that type of guy, being the man offensively for us to carry us through games, he can be part of a really decent run team deep into the playoffs. But I think that's also the mentality of himself and everyone around him is you're the guy. Well, I just don't think he's the number one guy. I think if you have him as your number one guy, late game, he just doesn't have enough offensive prowess when it gets slow and grindy and playoffy. And I think that's the issue is trying to have him buy into that role. Like, you're still going to be an all-star with those numbers. You're still going to be a very, very good player. You're still going to be a superstar tier player. You're just not going to be. You're not James Harden. You're not Kevin Durant. You're not Steph Curry. And I think he's really desperate to be in that echelon. And I think that's a big part of why we're seeing what we're seeing.
Bogues, you've been around a lot of teams, right?
Yep.
Can you really have that honest conversation with a player and telling them that they're not a number one option, even a fucking fourth option on a team, and you're telling him that he has no chance for an all-star team or he's not going to be the number one option? I mean, how hard is it these days for that guy not to get in the fucking shitter when you tell him that and like want to quit on you right away?
Oh, it's tough, and that's the $1 million question with Ben Simmons. It's you're not a top 10 guy. You're not. It's the harsh reality. But I think you're a very, very good second star on a team that can really. There'll be nights where you're the first star on the team where you're 20, 15, and 10. Great, fantastic. But I think for the good of the team that he's in, if he can buy into that role, my argument is that team can then go. That their ceiling is lifted massively. If he goes into a team saying, hypothetically, he goes to Minnesota, nah, Towns, I'm the one, you're the two. And if it's that struggle we've seen on many superstar teams over the last 50 years where I'm the number one guy. No, I'm the number one guy. It's not going to work. It's just, and that's the beauty of I know Brooklyn didn't win it, but the fact that they're coexisting is kind of, a credit to those guys in a way. They're always labeled as selfish and they have to be the number one guy. They've somewhat coexisted and been able to say, you know what, like we're all number one guys on a team with just us as the star. But they haven't really had that wrestle. They play their roles and they all get their touches. So I don't think you can right now at this point in Ben Simmons' career. But I would hope he would mature in the next 3, 4, hopefully 2 years where he can say, you know what, I can look myself in the mirror. I'm still on a max contract. I'm still an all-star. I am going to be the best player to ever come out of Australia. I have a chance to potentially be in the Hall of Fame one day if I continue these numbers, but be okay with being a two guy at times. I think that's the decision and the chat that he has to have with himself, bro.
Yeah. Bogues, in Brooklyn, it seems like they never really either get asked or answer that question of who's the number one guy. And that's where I think the fucking arguments start. Like, who gives a fuck? Like, there's 82 games. There's plenty of possessions. You could have multiple people score 20 plus points a game. Close to 30 points a game, maybe even over 30. Like, who gives a fuck? And I think that if you say, look, I don't give a fuck who the number one option is. Like, we're just going to play. This is what I need you to do. And this is how you're going to help us win. And regardless, like, I don't give a fuck who's number one is. I'm not even going to answer the question. We're just going to keep playing and don't worry about it. I think so many fucking players worry about who the man is, who the number one option is, all that, and just play. And if you got game and you could fucking put numbers up and carry a team, then there you go. It's the season's going to show. There's too many fucking games where people are going to see if you got what you're made of. Plus the playoffs, plus all this other stuff. Like, people are going to see it. So I just think people make way too much of who the number one guy is, who the number two guy is. Like, just, fuck it. Let's just roll with it. Let's see. We know who the number one guy is. We don't have to, like, talk about it. But, I mean, again, it's like the vaccine thing. Like, everybody's got to fucking talk about it. And then it starts dissension. You know, Embiid versus Simmons. Like, who gives a fuck? Embiid's a much better player than Simmons. Who gives a fuck? You know, of course you can't say that.
With young guys, how it is. You come into the league, you're trying. This is my team. This is my team, and it's like most of those guys figure it out usually mid to late career, and then win a chip. The guys that don't figure it out, they remain the guy on their team, and they put up 20 and 10, and they never win anything. It's a pretty simple formula, and it's equated on numerous teams. But I just think that that's the struggle you have, and I think there's a luxury. Being on a Brooklyn and being Kevin Durant, having an off night and saying, shit, I've got James Harden and Kyrie next to me. I've had an off night. I can defer to them as much as they will never admit deferring, but I can actually have a bad shooting night and still win a game because I've got these two guys next to me. It takes a bit of pressure off me, whereas if you're the number one guy and you have a bad shooting night, you lose, the pressure's back on you. So I think it actually helps to an extent as well. But Joel Embiid's still, he's having some subtle jabs at Ben as time goes on, and some would say subtle jabs, some would say trolling, some would say the honest truth. His comments read, I feel like over the years our team has been built around Ben Simmons. Our teams have always been built around his needs. Even going back to the reason we signed Al, we got rid of Jimmy, which I still think was a mistake, just to make sure Simmons needed the ball in his hands, and that's a decision they made. The situation is disappointing, borderline kind of disrespectful to all the guys that are out here fighting for their lives. Some guys rely on the team being successful to stay in the league and make money somehow, because if you're on a winning team, you're always going to have a spot in the league just because you're on a winning team and you contributed. We are a better team with him. There's no question about it. We still hope he changes his mind, but I kind of owe it to these guys to worry about what we have here. And Joel, he's not going to change his mind, mate. So you can put that in the rearview mirror. But I mean, it's a fair point. I think that the team was the Al Horford thing was just we looked at it as like, what the hell is going on? And the read was they wanted another big that can stretch the floor to free up some space for Ben Simmons, because you can't put him next to a non-shooting big. So they needed a backup big, or they overpaid for it. They even started him at the 4 at times, which didn't work out very well. But they needed another big that could stretch the floor, because that was a Ben Simmons need. If you went out and signed someone that, like myself, that was in my prime but wasn't a three-point shooting threat, it just would not fit. You can't play together, right? So I think Joel has a point there, bro. Yeah, I mean, I think he's right. Like you said, like they got guys, they brought him in because of his lack of shooting. They might have built it around Ben, as far as his lack of shooting, because you need it, right? Like, because you can't have a guy that can't really shoot at all and doesn't want to shoot and can't make free throws. But they catered to both of them. They catered to both of them. So, they might have built it around a little bit, and he could say that, and he's true. But they catered to that guy, and they catered to him. They catered to both those guys. And whatever they were going to do or say or want, they were going to get it. And, they tiptoed around those guys. They never really said anything, they never really, coached those guys. And that's pre-Doc I'm talking about, and this is what fucked everything up. But he's pissed because I think, didn't Ben say something in the media before? Something about we've run our course or whatever, and that probably started the whole thing, But I like Embiid. Embiid's a character, but he's sort of like a Charles Barkley. He'll just say whatever the fuck he wants to say. He doesn't give a fuck what you think. He's good value.
I like him.
He's good value, but
yeah, he does add value to it.
We'll see what happens to Philly, because it's they're in their window, as we've discussed. So they need, Joel's not getting any younger. He has an injury history, but this is their window to try and win a chip. So they hopefully need to get something back for Ben. I think CJ McCollum would be the best deal they could find. I think that would be absolutely fantastic for him to put with that squad next to Joel and the other pieces they have, Matisse and Tobias. So I think that'd be their best bet if they can do that. I'd do it in a heartbeat. They should just hurry up and get it done. But we'll watch that space. Gerson Rosas fired, pro. Is this another Mark Spears hit job? What's going on? What have you heard on the street down there?
New ownership came in. It's coming in. So, like, you're on shaky ground as it is, unless you were really winning a lot of games before that. No one gives a fuck that you're in Minnesota. No one gives a fuck that the team's never really won. Even when KG was there, they never really made a run at it. Maybe they made it the Western Conference semis or the finals like one time. He was on shaky ground as it is. And the story goes that, like, he was hard on employees. He was hard on one employee that actually got the GM job when they let him go. And he wanted to go to Houston for a job. I think it was a higher position money-wise. And he wanted to go right before the draft and right before draft and free agency. And Gerson didn't let him go. And so that guy went to ownership, went to upper ownership, and complained about it. And then there are stories that he banished him from the building after that, and their relationship got messed up. They said that he worked his staff really hard. So that's sort of what I heard. And then, so that was the gist of it. What did you hear after that?
He only got hired. What was it? Was it April? March?
No, he got hired. He got hired before the pandemic. So he was there for 3 years.
Was it before the pandemic, was it? Are you sure?
No, it was because he brought me in as a consultant. He brought me in a consultant, and I left as people were getting sick. I got on a plane. I felt like I was in a fucking a sci-fi movie. I got on a plane that day to go back from Minnesota to there. So yeah, he's been there. I want to say this was going on year 3. Or year 4,
May
or maybe
2019.
year 3.
So you're spot on.
Yeah.
I felt like he was there much shorter, but yeah. Anyhow, I mean, the comments coming from David Sampson, who's with CBS Sports, were interesting. This is his quotes in an article. It's inconceivable how you can run a team where you fire your president of basketball operations right before training camp. Something acute must have happened. That's the only explanation for a firing this close to a season. Sampson says the only way it makes sense to make this move so close to training camp is that he was discovered to have done something so horrific that you had to fire him now. He says all of these questions are being asked because it has to be something serious, and that's a fair point. It's very reactionary to happen right now. Most teams would try to play some sort of have a strategy behind the firing. There's a lot of NBA teams, people out there that know they're going to fire someone, and they might look at the calendar and say, shit, it's October 1, we're going into camp, let's just play this off till the end of the month, or let's play this off till trade deadline, or let's whatever it is, right? Let's wait till we lose 3 games in a row, whatever it is. That happens a lot in our league. It's ever rarely this reactionary where it happens, with the smack of a fist to a table. So there is some smoke there. Hopefully, you spoke on the hard on. Hopefully the hard on wasn't a different kind of hard on, pro, in today's climate, but. Yeah, it just happened so quickly, and he's out of there. So
yeah, they made him sound like a tyrant, working his staff hard. First of all, about half the fucking GMs in the league, they treat their staff hard and they work him hard. As far as not letting that guy go right before free agency and draft, look, he's got all their moves they're gonna make. What moves you're gonna make in free agency and draft. Fucking 3 weeks to a month before the fucking draft happens. So you're not going to let him go to Houston, which is in the fucking division, in the conference, and you're not going to let him with all that proprietary information, let him go to another team. I would have held off too. Now I would have let him go after free agency and draft or the next year, but I could see that. And the guy's done a decent job. The one black spot on the career, in the basketball side of things was, he was like Captain Ahab going after his big white whale was D'Angelo Russell. Like he chased him for like a year and change. I'm not a D'Angelo Russell fan. I never have been. And he gave up a lot of collateral for him. He gave up, unprotected picks, which it turned into an unprotected pick this year. It wasn't like this huge pick or anything, but it was a pretty high pick. But like that was the big thing. You gave up all this for D'Angelo Russell and to put him with Towns, and you could have not done that, kept your picks, drafted really high. Look, like drafted Anthony Edwards. He brought in, Malik Beasley, brought in Naz Reid. He brought in some good pieces. The Jared Culver draft, they had to get rid of him. He was sort of a bust. He drafted him high in his first draft. So yeah, but I mean, the team was sort of turning a corner a little bit. They're playing well. Edwards is really turning into a star. Like, he had some traction. The problem, though, too, Bogues, is the new ownership. Like, the new ownership comes in, A-Rod comes in, like, he's a minority owner now. The owner, Taylor's, he still has full control of the team. And then, like, every year, they sort of get more ownership, and they ended up taking over the team, I think, in, like, 3 or 4 years. So, but like new ownership too, like usually when a new owner comes in, he had some fucking guy, like if most of what happens is if they know that you're going to buy a team, Bogues, like you're going to buy the Golden State Warriors, you're going to have 3 or 4 fucking gypsies that want to like nip at your toes saying, hey, look, that GM they got there sucks. I can do this for you. I can do that for you. Like, and what happens is you want to bring your own guy in. You get somebody chirping in your ear that you're probably going to hire. You're going to 8 times out of 10, you're going to fire the GM. You're going to usually fire the coach unless they've been doing really well. And maybe they just wanted to make the move earlier than, rather than later. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just a strange one to look at, but we'll watch that space. Maybe there'll be some leaks coming out down the track, but it just was strange and reactionary. All right, the Denver Nuggets, they've been very active in the offseason, bro. Their moves, to me, signal that they think this is the roster to get it done. I'm not sure what you think about it, but we'll get to that in a second. They have signed Michael Porter Jr. to a $200 million max, and they've given Aaron Gordon a 4-year, $92 million. So before that, they were 18th in the league team salary. Next season, it is a big bump up. They got Jokic next season at $33 million, Jamal Murray at $31 million, Aaron Gordon will be at $19 million, Will Barton's still on the books for $14, Monte Morris is on the books for $9, and then don't forget you got Porter Jr. now at just under $30 million. Jeff Green's there for $4.5 and JaMychal Green's there for $8.2. That's basically your roster. You're going to have to really, hopefully some of these kids you drafted, Bowles obviously the one that stands out, Bol to see how he develops. He's got 1 more year on his deal, which is this is the last year of his deal. But you're going to have to pray to get some good veterans in some buyout type markets if you're competing for a spot next season in that playoff bracket. But I mean, they're all in, bro. I just don't think this is a roster that wins you a chip.
Yeah, they got no other choice though, Bogues. Like I'm not a big Aaron Gordon fan. I think he's a decent player, but I think that's a lot of money to pay. The problem is, Bogues, when you're over the cap but not over the tax, if you let go of these guys, like if you let go of a $15 million player and you're $10 million over the cap, you're not replacing him, that $15 million player. So like with Gordon, I think you could have, he does fit a role for them, but whatever, you paid him what you paid him. The whole Michael Porter Jr. deal, look, you're not going to replace Michael Porter in the draft, where they'd be drafted. You're not going to get a Michael Porter Jr. in free agency. Is he a great player? No. I mean, if he signed for $200 million, then Luka Doncic should sue the fucking league to get a $500 million max. If now he's a max and they're making the same amount of fucking money, that's a joke. But like, he is a good player. You're not going to replace him. If that's what it's going to take to keep him there, fine. But the roster is probably not good enough to get it done. But if you let Porter go, if you let Gordon go, or trade them, you're not going to get equal value back. And, you might be 5th in the, realistically, you might be the 4th best team in the West. Now, look, Clippers are not going to win without Kawhi this year. So they're probably, if they're going to make a run, they're going to make a run now. And I think you got to keep your assets together. You got to keep your team together. You got Jokic, Murray, Porter, and then a bunch of these other role players. You might as well take a run at it because, look, they've been in mediocrity for a long fucking time. And if you get rid of these guys, you're going to be in mediocrity for a longer fucking time. And you can't burn daylight with Jokic. You don't know how long he's going to be healthy for. You don't know how long he's going to be dominant for. He's in his prime. And he could stay in his prime for a long fucking time. You might as well put the best team possible around him rather than throw these guys back into the water, these fish back in the water, and then pray in the next couple of years you can replace them with some pieces. That shit never fucking works. Nobody wants to go to Denver. No free agent's going to want to go to Denver. You've got your guys under contract. You might as well do it. Yeah, Porter Jr. is not a max player, but fuck, you might as well keep him there. You don't want to risk losing him in free agency. And then Aaron Gordon's a nice starter. Like, to me, Aaron Gordon's a good fifth option, fourth option. Like, he's a good, like, solid fourth or fifth guy. If that's what it's going to take to keep him, fuck it. The guy averages 12 and 5. That's probably really where, realistically, that's sort of, where he is. So, yes, you're right. They're not. I don't know if they're going to win a champ. They probably won't win a championship, but this is going to be the best chance of it in a long time, and they got to get these guys together because I don't think you can replace losing those two guys,
Yeah, I think the Porter Jr. one, it is what it is. I think we'll go through some of his numbers in the stats segment because he had some really, really impressive numbers. But, I mean, the Aaron Gordon one, you make a good point to keep him. What else are you getting if you don't sign him? But that was the one that was questionable for me because I just don't think he fit in well with Denver. I think he's now, it's the Ben Simmons argument. Will he buy into a lesser role? Will he buy into being, hey, man, we've got Jokic, Murray, and Porter Jr. There are three. There are big three. Barton probably arguably is more offensively skilled than Aaron Gordon, minus the athleticism. Obviously, Aaron Gordon's athleticism is off the charts. You're probably the fourth, fifth option at best. You're never going to be the number one option on the court. To give a guy like that 21 million, a year, is there anyone else out there that they could have spent that on? But like you said, it does affect the cap because it's not a guy from your own roster. That's where you get the benefit, right? Yeah,
and when you're over the cap and you let go of him, because he was making okay money but not great money, and if you let him go, you're not going to spend dollar for dollar for what you like. If he's making 15, you won't be able to get a guy for 15. Yep. You'll probably only be able to use your mid-level exception anyway. Look, Ben Simmons put up pretty good numbers, and he's been a star. Like, he's been a star, not like a superstar, but he's been a star. Like, people think he's really fucking good. Not a great player, but really fucking good. Had this huge name, top pick. Aaron Gordon was none of those things. He's never shown promise of it. He's always been an above-average player in the league, decent player, but he's never shown it, like flashes of it. Yeah, he won a dunk contest and all that shit, and he puts up numbers against bad teams, for bad teams, but, like, Ben Simmons has shown, like, over a stretch of time, he's really fucking good. He just can't close because of his shooting and the other antics, but, like, Aaron Gordon, like, if he thinks he's a star, I'll be like, I don't really give a fuck what you really think. No offense, but you're not a star. You can make cases that you may not even be a starter for this team. Like, you might be able to start other guys in place of him and you'd still be okay. You could really help because of your toughness, athleticism, strength, but you're not really a perimeter player. You don't really have much skill. You shoot about 33 from the three. It's not like you're killing it with your shooting. You can't really handle the ball. You're not a decision maker. You could overpower guys on switches. You could play in transition. You could straight line drive. You're good. You're a good, solid player. But if you think you're a star, I'm sorry, man. Like, if you want to be a star, EuroLeague just started this week, brother. You might be able to catch him by week 2. You might be able to get on some team in Russia. That's where you're a star. You're not a star here. You're not a star in any of these teams.
I mean, I think arguably in that system with Jokic, he could score a lot of baskets just from his athleticism of split cut, slip lob, playing out of the dunker. He'll be able to get 3 or 4 cheap baskets. Transition. Jokic is one of the best in the game at defensive rebounding and the long-range outlet baseball passes for guys for layups. if he just runs the floor like he can and gets to the rim whenever he can for lobs and when guys turn their head, he'll have that's 10 points a game for him, I think. So I think, it's a mindset change for him from Orlando getting touches. We're going to ISO you, losing all of that. He can make that up with just a little bit of effort, and it's much easier. He doesn't have to exert himself in games and be, I think he needs to get better defensively. I think he's shown flashes that he can be a good defender. But he's got to be that stopper role for him to have a chance. So if they want to try to get to the second, third round, he's the go and stop Kawhi or Paul George for us. Go and stop, LeBron for us. And that's something that probably he hasn't been held accountable for in his Orlando days. No,
and you make a great point. Jokic is the difference maker. Jokic is that Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, Larry Bird factor where, like, if you're a player, you play on teams with those guys on it because they're going to make it easy for you. Like those guys who play with Jason Kidd, the Richard Jeffersons, the Kenyon Martins, the Scalabrinis, the Collins, like those guys weren't worth what they were paid at the end of it because Jason made it easy for those guys, set them up for lobs because of his vision. Larry Bird took like a 20-win team into a 60-win team, like with the same roster in his rookie year. Fucking Steve Nash, like I remember advising Channing Frye, he was going to be a free agent leaving Portland, and he could have either played in Cleveland or he could have gone to Phoenix on a 2-year, $7 million deal, 3.5. And I said, "Are you fucking insane? You got to play with Steve Nash because all you got to do is catch the ball where he throws it to you, and he's going to just fucking hand deliver it to you, and you don't have to work for shots." He'll find you, and he's gonna constantly put 3 defenders on him when he drives and pick and roll. It just kick it right back out to you. And Channing ended up making $40 more million in his next deal because he was able to play with a guy like that. With Jokic, you're right, split cuts. He's gonna get triple teamed, swing right back. Like he's got that Larry Bird, that Larry Bird, LeBron James, Magic Johnson, vision where he's going to find them for easy baskets all day. Transition, cuts, straight line drives, open jump shots. In Orlando, he'd have to get single and double team. And then he can't really handle that because he's not that type of player. He's not good enough to live on bad shot, a steady diet of bad shots. So I think this is a great situation for him. It's good for Denver because they don't have to go out and try to get another guy. I don't think they could have got better than him in free agency, what they had to spend. So it's a marriage, they're not going to get better. He's not going to get better. It's like, if you're a guy and you're 4.5 and you marry you marry a 4.5 and you're true 4.5s, you're not going to get a 7. You're not going to get an 8. You can't get anything better than this. That's what you got. So, hey, let's fucking deal with it.
Move on with it. I've got a breaking story. No, not a breaking story. Just some tomato sauce that Zion Williamson apparently is looking very heavy, pro. This is Zion Williamson. Even heavy. I should say even heavier than he has been. And there's some rumors from that end of town that he has refused to step on a scale during training camp. No joke. This is not a joke. He has refused to weigh in because he knows he's heavier than he should be. And apparently he's not looking too good. I mean, he's still got his athleticism and strength, but there's some big worries down there in New Orleans with his weight.
Well, first of all, Bogues, I thought I lost in the pool, so I had my money at your secret source in New Orleans being Van Gundy, and I fucking lost. So if you're still getting, after he got shit canned and you're still getting source deals out there, then I was wrong in the pool. But yeah, to go back to Zion, I mean, who knows? I'll take your source's word for it. Look, he's had a weight problem his whole career, and it's always going to be a problem until he deals with it. And that doesn't faze me one bit. I'm not surprised. It is what it is, man.
Well, it phases you from the fact that, he has played heavy for most of his career. He's just a beast athletically. He's just an ox of a person, just strong as shit. And just it phases you if you're the team that's investing a lot of money in him. He's your number one guy. The injuries, that's the thing. Like ACLs, ankles, backs, the more weight you put on with the style of basketball he plays, can be a hindrance. Now, I could be wrong. He could play 10 years. Look at Shaquille O'Neal and what he managed to do late in his career, even with weight. He was never really hurt because he was so big and so strong. But carrying, extra baggage to the point where, you've got a gut hanging over your shorts, I think is probably not the right frame of body you'd want in the NBA.
No, and like I said, I'm not surprised. I'm not saying that the team shouldn't be in, for sure. Like, look, these days though, Bogues, these players could do whatever the fuck they want. What are these guys going to do to him? That's the problem. He's played fat his whole career. He thinks it's fine. It's not going to end well for him at some point. Some point it's going to be, God forbid, it's going to be a major fucking injury. But these teams can't do any of these guys. They don't give a fuck. What are they going to fine them? 20 grand, 50 grand? It's not 100 grand. Like, it doesn't, the team's fucked. Like, look, the guy wants to leave. It's going to end badly. He'll sign his extension. It's unprecedented that a player doesn't sign their extension with the team. And then he's probably going to leave, at some point, sooner rather than later. So he's just going to do whatever the fuck he wants. He didn't like the coach. Seems like he doesn't, he's not clicking with management. So he's just going to do whatever the fuck he wants to do. And if he doesn't believe in you, he doesn't want to be with that franchise. Do you think he's going to be fucking hitting Weight Watchers and hitting the fucking beach at 6 a.m. running and on the treadmill and shit with the fucking garbage bag over him losing weight? Nah, fuck no. He's going to, what do they call those donuts in New Orleans? Beignets?
Beignets.
Yeah, he's going to be hitting that fucking, he's going to invest in a beignet. I've never fucking, I saw that movie Chef with Jon Favreau and they look good as shit. I've heard of them. I've never gone. I've heard that place is outstanding.
You never had a beignet? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know. I'm the worst fat guy on the planet. I don't.
Well, you don't enjoy any of the fat perks.
No,
you just Jesus.
I eat tons of bland food, and I eat a lot of fucking pizza and carbs, no doubt, and cereal. I keep Tony and the Tiger's fucking mistresses happy because I fucking I invested so much in this product. But yeah, I'm not a donut guy. I don't eat that many donuts, man.
Okay, good to know. Noted. Beignets are good though.
What's your thoughts on it though? Yeah, what's your thoughts on?
I just feel bad. I feel bad for the team because it's a small market team that's just going to get. We've seen this story a million times, pro, and we all know how it's going to end. He's going to end up in New York or LA down the track, and yeah, it's just I don't know, man. I don't like it. You can kind of see remnants of Harden in Houston. He wants to get out of there, but look, he's hired his guy. They got his guy as coach that he wanted. You hope he puts in, but they're getting better. Their roster's not awful, so they should be somewhere in the mix. I have them between 7, 8, 9, down to probably 12, somewhere around that ballpark if they have a really good year. But it could go the other way too, where they could just implode. Zion gets hurt, and then they're trying to find themselves. But I like Ingram. I like a few of the other pieces they have. So we'll watch that space. Pau Gasol expected to announce his retirement, pro, from professional basketball next Tuesday, or at time of recording for us, it's 3 days, and the pod should be out by then. But yeah, he has a press conference set on Tuesday in, I believe, in Spain. And yeah, fantastic career. A guy that really his longevity was probably one of the most impressive things about him. Very, very multi-skilled big, probably, one of those guys that came in and really kind of showed what a big guy can do as far as you're not just going to put you on the block to rebound and set screens. You can handle the ball, he can pass. He was just, basketball IQ was off the charts. And you can probably speak a little bit better to Powell, knowing how much Kobe respected him and what he did for Kobe's game. At times was labeled kind of soft European and all that, but the numbers don't lie, and he's what he's done throughout his career have been, and then even adapting to a 3-point shooter late in his career have been phenomenal. So very, very good player. Will go down in the Hall of Fame, and a career that we should all have enjoyed. Pau
Gasol is one of my favorite big guys in the history of mankind to watch. His footwork is phenomenal. His face-up game is, just an unbelievable pro. I remember hearing about him early on in his Barcelona days, and Jordan. That was a Kwame Brown draft, actually. Jordan passed on him to take Kwame, and in Memphis, he never won a playoff series, but he had such unbelievable ability and talent, and great to watch, graceful on the court. And then they goes in the Kwame Brown trade with LA and Memphis for his brother, actually, and he goes to LA and he helps them win 2 championships. Kobe said it was his favorite teammate of all time. He's his favorite teammate just to talk basketball with, as a competitor, as I think Kobe wanted him to be a little bit tougher, like you said, like with the whole sort of labeled soft thing. But I'll tell you what, he was ridiculous to watch. Him and Dirk got, compared, a lot neck and neck. Dirk probably had, Dirk had the better career scoring and being that number one option that, he was the number one option on a championship team, and he took teams real deep in the playoffs, where Powell, sort of needed some help like everybody else. But man, I'll tell you what, he puts beauty in the game of basketball. I'd watch him till he's 70 play. The guy's that good. Just a high IQ pro, just a fantastic player. And like I said, Kobe said he was fantastic with people, organization. He wasn't all that fantastic for Memphis. He sort of forced his way out. But yeah, great player. He'll be remembered. It's going to be sad not to see him play.
Yeah, definitely an enjoyable career. Championship winner, I believe gold medal winner. He got a gold son.
Yeah, those national teams.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was a World Championships or Olympics. I have to look up. But anyhow, quick NBL wrap. Not a whole lot going on. Season has been postponed again to mid-December now, Pro. It was mid-November, so we're down to mid-December. Still a lot of uncertainty here. Much of what you mentioned earlier on in the podcast around state laws are all different in Australia. It's like we're living in 7 different countries, essentially. So they're trying to navigate what they're going to do. There is considerations potentially to go, for those Australian listeners, what the Soccer League did here, the A-League, where there's 2 conferences potentially and you split up the teams, because the issue now, Pro, is if you travel to certain states, it's not so much the vaccine mandate we have here, Pro. It's you got a 14-day quarantine to get into some states, if they even let you in at all. So that's not feasible for a game a week. So they might need to base half the league somewhere and half the league somewhere. They play each other in that city or state in kind of like a round robin for 3 or 4 months, 2 or 3 months, and then you flip them around and mix it back up. So it'll be interesting to see where all that goes. But yeah, hopefully the season can get underway without any hiccups in December, and everything else can be put behind us, and we can get some sport or some basketball in Australia back on TV.
Yeah, COVID's got all this shit fucked up. I know in China that they were going to do a bubble in one city and just have everybody based in one city. And yeah, COVID's got a lot of shit fucked. It's crazy. But like you said, like the United States, if you get different governments and different city, state mandate, whatever it is in Australia, it's just, yeah, it's rough, man. But they got to find a way to make it work. They got to find a way to make it where they could play their games, be financially feasible for the teams that you're going to either relocate or try to do something with.
Well, that's the problem. That's the problem, because the clubs make money in our league from home games predominantly, right? They don't get a lot of the league revenue. You got a team like New Zealand who's now going to have to go into another season where they're not based in New Zealand at all. Last season, they were based in Australia the whole year. There was issues with guys' mental health and being away from home for so long, not seeing their families, based in Australia for 6 odd months. So that's going to happen again. So it's not ideal. It is the best of a bad situation, and sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But it's going to be a shit show again, unfortunately, just based on the government rhetoric. It's not really the NBL's fault. They're kind of trying to navigate all these moving parts. But let's just hope the NBL comes with the most sensible plan and doesn't try to do another NBL Cup in Melbourne again, which was not very well done last season. It actually hurt the game, because they basically had a mid-season NBL Cup type tournament thing, and it just diluted the market in Melbourne. So then they couldn't sell tickets for the rest of the season after that, because they were so cheap during the tournament. They were selling it for $10 a head, that all of a sudden when the regular season games were back on and it was $60 a head, no one was coming. So it actually hurt them more than it helped. But we'll watch that space. Bro, we have a new segment. I'm really excited for this. We're going to call it Let's Go Pro Ranting. So it's your rant. I'm going to get my stopwatch ready. You have 2 minutes. You have a good one this week. We're going to try to make this a weekly thing. So listeners, if you like it, let me know. Pro was cognizant on this not being a Stephen A. Smith type rant. And I said, no, we don't want any Stephen A. Smith type bullshit here. It's just going to be the honest truth of something that's bothered you basketball-wise, whether it be NBA or around the world, this week. And we'll hopefully make this a weekly thing, Pro. But you think you can do it?
2 minutes? I don't know, man. I don't last 2 minutes doing anything. So, except eating. So, yeah, we'll see.
Get your wife on the pod and interview her.
Yeah.
No, you have up to 2 minutes. 2 minutes is the ding. If you go over it, I'm going to ding you. But I like the one that you have. You had it as a topic for the podcast to just put in our regular chat, but I think it's a good rant. So I'll count you down and go for your life.
Okay, got it.
3, 2, bang, go.
Bogues, this fucking training camp bullshit about, first of all, there hasn't been a player that fucking missed a shot in training camp in 30 fucking years. Every player is a fucking Hall of Fame player. Every non-shooter turned into a fucking shooter. Every fucking asshole turned into they found God and the nicest, most coachable guy in America. All these fucking player-coach relationships that were worse than Iran and Iraq are just, everything's great. Kumbaya. Everything's awesome. A coach or a general manager, no one ever says, yeah, this player really, he's average. He did okay this week. Everything's, this guy's fucking fantastic. He's blowing up. He's going to be great this year. This is the year he really does it. Everybody's family here. We're not trading this guy. Everything's great. We're going to make this thing work this year. We're all together. We're in it to win it. Blah, blah, blah. And it's just all fucking bullshit. By fucking January, fuck that. By November 15th, the shooter that's supposed to be the next Larry Bird is shooting 26% from three. The fucking asshole who's supposed to be like the kindest, he's gonna win the citizenship award, is fucking, he's already fucking banned from the practice facility, hanging out with the guy who can't shoot, who got fucking thrown out, got fucking cut from the team, awaiting his fucking play in China. I mean, it's unbelievable because within a month, everybody forgets this bullshit. And then again, the fucking Larry Bird is a non-shooter. The nice guys become the asshole. That player and the coach is fucking at each other's throats. And it's just complete bullshit. Just be honest for once about training camp. This guy did okay.
I like it, bro. I like it. The first one, beautiful. And it's a valid point. Whenever we look, we like, journalists writing in-depth stories, but every beat writer writes the same story during training camp. This guy looks great. This guy was on a diet. This guy's got a tan and looks fantastic. This guy's been putting extra rise and grind time in the gym. So I think you've hit it out of the park. I think a bit of honesty wouldn't go astray, but good start to pro ranting.
Appreciate it.
All right. So we'll move on to our fact or fake news. What do you got?
Ben Simmons' next team makes the playoffs, Bogues.
Oh, Ben Simmons' next team makes the playoffs. I think he's going to go to Minnesota. I've just got a feeling that's where he's going to end up. But otherwise, it'd be Portland, San Antonio. So if it was Portland, San Antonio, he makes it.
Let's rephrase the question. He goes to Minnesota. Does he make Minnesota a playoff team?
Not in the West. Fake news. Well, playoff team, I'm talking 1 to 8. I'm talking 1 to 8. Remember, we've got to put that stipulation in.
Yes, 1 to 8.
They might scrape into 9 or 10, maybe. But yeah, I'm going. They don't make the playoffs. Minnesota do not make the playoffs with Ben Simmons. What do you got?
Oh, I say it's fake news. He's not making the playoffs. If it's Minnesota, he's not making the playoffs. There's no chance. Because look, if he goes to Portland, it's going to be him from McCollum. So yeah, with Portland, they're going to make it. If he goes but he's going to Minnesota. If he's going to Minnesota in this trade, you're going to have to give up something for him. So you're either going to have to give up Beasley and a few other players, or you're going to center it around, D'Angelo Russell. You're going to get less talent. You're going to get more talent out the door, and then you're going to bring him in. He needs supporting cast to help him. They do not make the playoffs. So no, he will not make his next team a playoffs if that team is in Minnesota.
Got it. Next.
Bogues. Clay will average over 20 a game once he returns. His career average is 19.5, has not averaged under 20 since the 13-14 season, 18.4.
Oh, he'll average... Yeah, I think he'll average more than 20 a game. The concern is obviously his minute limit restrictions when he comes back will probably sit around 12 to 15 the first 5 games, and then I'll probably go to 18 to 20 for another 5 or 6, and then they'll take the leash off. The reason why I say most players, I'd probably say no because of the minute limit, but Clay's a bucket and Clay does not turn down shots. And he's going to have in his mind, okay, you assholes want to play me 12 to 15, which will piss him off because he'll want to play. He'll go, okay, I'm going to get 15 reps up in those 15 minutes. So I think it's a fact he's going to average above 20 a game upon his return from injury, which is penciled to be roughly December, I've read.
I say fake news. I say the minute restriction plus the whole, I'm sure they're going to hold him out of some games. I think that it's going to be too tough for him to average 20 a game with, the long layoff, the minute restrictions, and then you know how they're going to do it. It won't play back-to-backs probably and all that other stuff. So I'm saying fake news. I'll say he'll go under 20. Okay, well, let's fucking start it now. The Nets will win the championship this year.
Fact. I think they've tooled up well. I think the Patty Mills acquisition, and I'm saying this even with the whole situation regarding Kyrie Irving and the vaccinations and whether he plays home, I think it's home games in Brooklyn. Yeah, I think the Patty Mills insurance policy is vital. I think, and Patty's role off that bench to just come on and just be a fireball is perfect. They've retooled. We've obviously got some veterans back again for cheap. So I think they've retooled really well. And I think they get it done this season, Pro.
Yeah, I think fact too. With the Clippers, with Kawhi missing most, if not all, the season, I don't believe in the Lakers winning. I don't think the Lakers are going to win it.
I just think it's too old, man. I think the Lakers, it's an old roster, way too old.
It's an old roster with some pieces that you don't know if they're going to fit or not. And then, you got Milwaukee who's good, don't get me wrong, Giannis and that whole crew, but the firepower of Brooklyn. I like Nash as a coach. I like their pieces around those guys. I think they're going to be a good team. I think they're going to be a dominating team offensively. I think by the playoffs they're going to figure out how to let Kyrie Irving play if Kyrie's still on the roster, which I assume he would be. I don't think he's going to get traded for Simmons anytime soon. So I think they're going to figure out a way how to let him play home games in the playoffs. And, I think they're going to win the championship. I think they're good enough.
Totally agree. Watch that space. Stats, useful or useless, some off-season ones. One that was interesting is just a random one. The Laker jersey numbers, they've basically got they had every number covered from 0 to, 12 in order. So I'll read these out real quick. 0 was Westbrook, 1's Ariza, 2 Ellington, 3 AD, 4 Rondo, 5 Tucker, 6 LeBron, 7 Melo.
Oh, no, 8.
No, sorry, LeBron 6. Yeah, 8. 8 is gone. Yeah, obviously. Melo 9, Bazemore 10, DeAndre 11, Monk 12, and then you got Nunn as well. Sorry, Nunn was 12. But Dwight took 39 and got some shit for it because everyone was like, dude, you should have taken 8, not realizing that Kobe's was retired. So they've basically got every number covered from 0 to 12, and then just a weird one, but. StatMuse put that one to us. It has to be the lowest jersey number combination for a team in NBA history, Pro. It is useless, but it's just an interesting one, in my opinion.
That was, and I made the joke about the 8 because I remember that Dwight thing. That was pretty fucking, that was funny. But it's weird. It is a useless stat, but it is weird that I've never seen it like that, in basketball where they had that many low numbers taken, and all the way up to 12 and. All those low numbers, like no 34, no 23, no 44, 50 or anything like that. But it's fucking NBA, man. Circus at no tent.
Yeah, it is. It is. But it's just interesting. I wonder if it was strategic by the guys because it sounds like it was something. It can't just be random. You know what I'm saying? And then Dwight came and fucked it up. Someone said Dwight should have taken 00. Just
000.
000.
Think about it though. So Rondo's always been 4 for the most part. Westbrook was 0 at one time. Ariza was 1 most of his career. LeBron, he went back to 6. I don't know. I'm not a big number guy. Was Melo 7 his whole career?
What was he in Denver? No, was he 7 in Denver? I think he was.
He
Yeah.
might have been 7 at Denver too. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, LeBron's 6.
I don't fucking know.
LeBron is at, he was 6 was his training jersey in Cleveland, even though he wore 23 for the games.
And then in Miami, he was 6.
Yeah,
he was
Miami was 6. Yeah. So DeAndre Bazemore. I don't know, just a weird one, but anyway.
It is weird.
Next one, useful, useless. This is Michael Porter Jr. Pro, highest field goal, effective field goal percentage in a season for minimum 19 points per game. 68.3% was Wilt in 66-67 season. Next on that list, 64.6. Michael Porter Jr. last season had the second most efficient 19 point per game season in NBA history. Pro stats, useful, useless.
I fucking hate field goal percentage. Seriously, I don't even know what it is, and I fucking hate it. I know.
Sounds
good,
good,
so
though.
many fucking
It's
numbers.
It's It sounds good. Field goal percentage.
Yeah.
Effective. There's some sort of bullshit calculation where they makes, misses, divided, plus, minus.
Yeah. Hey, Bogues, EIEIO. Who the fuck cares about field goal percentage? I say useless because I'm taking a stand against field goal percentage.
Okay. Good to know.
What about you, Bogues?
I think it's useful. I think just when you chat about the max contract, that's what they probably would have presented to the to the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
When they offered him just a little bit under the max, say, hey, field goal percentage, get it over the line. Might have worked. But no, look, it's impressive for a young fella. At times,
sure.
The only reason I was shocked by it and why I put it in was because at times, he, at least 2 seasons ago, he used to come in and take some ill-advised, crazy shots, man. Like, he was just like...
Yeah, he lives on a diet of that shit. But
that's what I'm saying. The fact that he's got those numbers for field goal percentage is pretty impressive. But anyway, last one, highest career 3-point percentage with at least 4,500 attempts. I don't know if you've looked at the list, Pro, but who do you think number 1 would be?
I'm going to go with JJ Redick.
He's in there. Steph Curry's number 1, and he's obviously still active.
Shit.
43.3.
Fuck, what am I doing? Yeah.
But Kyle Korver's in there at 42.9, and then JJ Redick at 41.5. So that's useful or useless, Pro?
Oh shit! I'll say it's useful. Now, do you want to say that? I'll even flip the question on you, Bogues. JJ Redick has the highest field goal percentage of anybody in the league that I've ever blocked on social media. Is that a useful or useless stat?
I wonder if you got your half apology on the pod a couple of weeks ago.
No, fuck no. But I'm still not going to do it. He did retire too. We should probably
he did
point
actually.
that out.
He did.
Yeah.
JJ Redick retired. Fantastic career, fantastic shooter, and he'll probably be one of the best shooters of all time to be blocked by Mike Procopio by accident. That he won't renege on the block.
I heard he said, that fat piece of shit fucking blocked me. That's it. I'm done. My career's over. If I have a piece of shit like that blocking me, I think it's time to hang it up. So fuck that shit. This game ain't worth playing anymore. Fuck it.
Half valid point. That's the stats for this week. The Q&A was we fired a few blanks, so we had that via the call-in app. We didn't really have anyone join to ask a question. We had listeners, so with the call-in app, you can join to listen live, but you have to actually join a queue, which there's a button on there that lets you join a queue to ask a question, which would then be live on the podcast. So it was a little bit janky. So what we'll do leading up to next week, we'll do the same. It'll be the same process, but we'll put out some videos on how to join. The call-in app is very, very cool. So a lot of different podcasts on there. I urge you to download it. Call in, all one word, CALLIN. It's an app on a phone, so you can't do it via computer, but it allows you to engage with podcasts, listen to them live, join a room, ask questions, all that kind of stuff. So we're trying to move our Q&A portion there just so it's a bit more real. We hear all the quirky voices from around the world actually ask us the question and discuss the question in person. It'll be a really cool tool once we can get it firing. But a hit and a miss this week, Pro.
What'd you say, Bogues?
I said a hit and a miss this week with the Q&A, but we'll hopefully get it firing.
Without question. Somebody's getting fired. This week.
It is
I'm afraid it's me, but somebody else will get fired.
Yeah, it is a new app, so I'm even getting used to it, but we got to put out some videos so people can figure out exactly how to use them. But it is going to be a really, really cool app, so people should really check it out. There's not just Rogue Bows, but numerous different podcast platforms, and we're trying to move it all there just so the podcast flows nicely and we can hear everyone's wonderful voice. And I'm sure a few people that will have a bit of abuse for us from time to time, but that's how it goes. So, okay, story time we're going to finish with here. I wanted to do, Pro, I'm sure you probably have some good stories, but our first training camp, we're leading into NBA training camp. I want to do our first training camp, something that stuck out from you and myself, and I'll go first. I mean, I came in as the number one pick, a lot of pressure, and I just remember how hard those camps were. But then once I was in the league and knew what to expect, I don't think they were as hard as I thought. I think mentally they just really drained me going into my first ever NBA rookie camp, a lot of nerves. And I think that wore me out more than the actual training, if that makes sense, right? So back then it was much tougher. You had tour-a-days. They just brought in the rule, I think a year or two before I came to the league, Pro, they brought in that rule where you couldn't have 2 contact sessions a day. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. So you could only have, most teams back in the day would have 2 contact sessions. You'd have a 10 till 12 and then like a 5 till 7 at night for 5 days of training camp, and guys would just be getting fucked up. Like by third, fourth day of camp, most of the veterans would be out. They would be able to train. They'd be knocked up, back spasms, this, that. So the union put in a rule saying you can still have your tour-a-days, but one of them's a contact session where you can scrimmage and wrestle and do all that stuff, and then the other one's more of a kind of offensive set. So because it was the first or second year of that, a lot of coaches were pissed with it, right? They were like, no, this is bullshit. Okay, cool. So our second session was just running, man. He goes, you guys can't do contact yet. We're going to respect the union's wishes. Get on the line. We're going to do some conditioning. I was like, what the hell? So a lot of guys were pissed about that. That was my first memory. But the one that stuck out was my veteran was Joe Smith. Former player from Maryland, went to the
DJ.
Yep. And really, really good veteran, really kind of a journeyman towards the end of his career, but really good player. Played in Golden State for a number of years, Minnesota with Kevin Garnett, and then finished his career, towards the end with, I think, Philly and Milwaukee and a few other teams. And I remember, I think I was sitting there pre the first session, we're doing our warm up, and then we did, back in the day, they used to do the sit down stretching in a circle. That's gone out the window now. It's all active warm ups. I don't like you sitting down, but we were sitting around, and I think Joe Smith looked at me and he's like, "You all right, young fella?" And you could see that I was like half nervous, like, holy fucking shit, it's my first NBA training camp. I'm like, yeah, man, shit, like, this is, it's going to be tough, first training camp, kind of a little bit nervous. And he goes, take it from me, this shit will fly by and you'll be looking back in 15 years like I am, and you won't believe how quickly it flies by. And stupid young guy, like, shut up, man. Like, what the fuck would you know? Like, I'm nervous as shit. Like, I don't believe you. This session feels like it's going to go forever because it's my first training session. And Hosbin, he was right, man. Like, I'm 16 years after that. I look back and it feels like it's gone by. It's the click of my fingers. So that was one thing that stuck out for me, Pro. My first training camp with the Milwaukee Bucks. What about yourself? What was your first training camp where you were actually, fully involved and on the floor and employed, and what stuck out?
Well, I'll tell you what stuck out. I lasted 48 seconds on my first training camp before I was kicked out of training camp. So I was a scout for the Celtics. So I got hired, my first year I got hired late. I got hired in like October, November. They had me like live with Vin Baker. I told you that story before on the pod. So that wasn't my first official camp because I missed it. So the next year, the coach was Jim O'Brien. He was sort of like, I don't know if you knew Jim, he coached at Indiana before Vogel, and he coached at the Philadelphia 76ers. He's like a Bill Belichick, like really like, He walks down the hall and like plants die and stuff, and you hear the tune from Darth Vader coming. And he was like a rough dude, man. Like, he's just one of those old school coaches. So I was scouting. I don't know what I was, I didn't know where to go, whatever. So I was just used to going to game, like breaking down film and stuff. So I said, all right, I'm gonna check out camp. He like looked at me out of the side of his eye, because like in our facility, it was like a 1-court facility, small. Like open but small, and I was standing on the steps and you could barely see me. He looked up and he goes, "Hey, get the fuck out of here and go back to your fucking cage." And I literally 38 seconds after I just walked down the steps, so I had to waddle up the steps and get the fuck back to my cage. So I missed all the training camp because he told me, because he's one of those guys. He didn't want anybody in there except like Ainge and like, if you're an owner and stuff, he's fine. But like a low totem pole guy like myself, that was my first official training camp, and I was told to get back to my fucking cage. And I was like, all right, fuck it, I'll go back. And that was it. That was my training camp.
Rightfully so. I felt like telling you that via the podcast numerous times. So.
Yeah, I got one right next to me.
Yeah, exactly. All right, that's episode 36. Welcome back, Pro. Welcome back to all our listeners. Appreciate all the support. Make sure you share and like and do all that fun stuff that most people say you need to do to keep this podcast pumping. And we will hopefully catch you next week. And just a reminder, please download the Calling app if you want to participate in the Q&A and get your voice on the airwaves. Thanks, Pro.
Thanks, folks. See you guys next week.